function of magneto-reluctance and capacitive directance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric fan. The latter consisted simply of 6 hydrocaustic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambivation lunar wane shaft.
There's nothing to debunk. It debunks itself. When they can't offer you practicality and a definition of what it is they're actually claiming. It's a science of sophism. It's a science of cartoons. It's a science of how to animate things using crayons and wee drawings. But what they're claiming is no science, because they can't show it practically. There's no science. It's a science of deception. 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 Is it fucking that up? It's a science of deception. It's a science of deception. Right? It's a science of deception. It's a science of deception. Is it fucking that up? It's a science of deception. 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 Is it fucking that up?
It was a normal lotus or delta type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator, every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible hole.
It's a science of sophism. It's a science of cartoons. Right? It's a science of how to animate things using crayons and wee drawings. But what they're claiming is no science, because they can't show it practically. There's no science. It's a science of deception. 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 Is it fucking that up? It's a science of deception. It's a science of deception. Right? It's a science of deception. It's a science of deception. Is it fucking that up?
It may also be employed in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation ding alarm to reduce sinusoidal repleneration.
Gravitoids.
It's a science of deception.
Gravitoids.
Science of deception.
Gravitoids.
It's a 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 science of deception. It's the science of deception. Repleneration.
Hello, how you doing? I know, I tried earlier, but fuck it. We're off in different time zones. Time zones means Earth's a globe. Can only be a sphere pair because there's time zones, night and day, stuffs and reasons. Right. So, I thought I would have a wee chat about the stuff in the title. before we go there, you know, these people again, they're commenting, show me a practical demonstration of a pressure gradient. I've already shown you how to create a pressure gradient. You can create a pressure gradient by utilising motion. Stop being lazy, people. If you really want to comprehend your reality, you don't go asking questions to people like me. You explore the reality yourself, you do your investigations, you perform practical tests, and reality will reveal to you exactly what it is. So you can create a pressure gradient by utilising motion. I have shown this on a number of occasions. You can use a vehicle, a sealed vehicle, and you can hang lead weights, wooden weights, you can have a helium balloon in there, and then you can start to propel the car forwards relative to you. And what you will see happening is a compression towards the rear of the car, where there's more density of air, creating a push forward, which will push the helium balloon forwards. Ta-da! Pressure gradient. Wonderful stuff. Anyhow, in the title, obviously when we're talking about this stuff, you know, I've highlighted this so many times before, and it's a real issue for me when I look at mainstream. And you know, mainstream, your whole life you've had from again, when I mention these things as if they're different, religions and science are one and the same in this modern era. They're continually offering you existential stories, narratives. So when I'm talking about this again, this is not really a factual, objective inquiry. This is just me going through the reasoning in my own mind and why I arrive at the conclusions that I have arrived at. And I can offer my reasoning again when we're talking about this sort of philosophy. It's only reasoning. None of us know the objective truth to the answer of where we are, why we're here, how it came to be, who put it here, who created it, yada yada. But when you see mainstream, you know, and everybody knows we've got the Big Bang cosmology, they're giving you, the populace, a creation story. That's exactly what it is. It's no different from any of the other religious narratives. So again, when I'm talking about this, I'm not making any assertive claims. I'm not claiming to know the answers. I'm only going through my reasoning and how I came to the conclusions that I came to and what sits with me. Again, you know, we're only equipped to deal with the reality that we experience, that we find ourselves in. So we should pursue that and see how far that takes us. We're part of the physical. This is the level, the dimension that we operate and function at. Okay, although we have metaphysical components and aspects of, you know, emotions and thought and these types of concepts, but, you know, physically we're attuned to the physical reality. We have the apparatus to explore and experience that physical reality. So we should just be pursuing that. Real science for me is just exploration from day to day, without postulating biases, trying to interpret things to fit bias or any of that stuff. Just purely exploring the reality, see what it offers you, see what you can find out about it, and that's it. That's as far as science should ever go. As soon as they start waffling on, you know, trying to tell you about 1,000 years ago, 1,000,000 years ago, 4.5 billion years ago, 14 billion years ago, you're dealing with religious stories. That's just the fact of the matter. Okay, I don't care how scientifical you think you are. The same as the globe Earth and the majority of these things, they're theories that are brought about by interpreting things, okay, to fit presuppositions. So when people start telling you 14.5 billion years ago, infinitesimal, infinitely dense singularities, and I've spoken about this before, infinitely dense singular. How can you have infinitely dense? If it's infinite, then you know, it's not like a point or a singular thing. You wouldn't be able to get the defining edges of anything. Again, I don't even want to go into asking questions
and highlighting the absurdities of mainstream narratives like the Big Bang and all that fucking rubbish. It's just crap. Pure and simple, absolute rubbish. Part of the whole psychological operation to box human beings in, to give them a false sense of security, a false sense of certainty, a false sense of belonging, to keep them confused and in bewilderment, so that nothing's ever going to make sense. Again, you know, times gone by, you'll hear people talking about how the religious, the churches had dominance over the people with fear of God and all this stuff. It's the very same people. It's the very same branch of control that's been utilised to spin you the new story of your existence. But again, that doesn't detract that we can have a conversation with each other, we can offer each other's, you know, reasoning and, you know, the position that you stand on and how you view it and what the possibilities may be, because that's the only thing I can do. I can think about, you know, the massiveness of infinite and the eternal and my position within it, but I'm never going to be able to fully comprehend that. I'm never going to be able to fully package it and present it to anybody and say, look, here is our wee portion of the infinite and the eternal right here, this is where we... That's not how it's going to work. But when we talk about, you know, the meaning of and why it's here and what's expected of us and these types of things, then for me, there's certain avenues of reasoning that I can go through to highlight where I feel there's absurdities in some of these postulations, like, you know, life has this meaning and your life has this meaning that transcends this experience and has a place in some other realm in the infinite and the eternal. I mean, a lot of that stuff just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But again, I'm going to get through some aspects because I have doubts and I have different thoughts the same as everybody else. So I'd written some things down, so if you see me having a glance, it's just because I've got some markers of, you know, to trigger me to remember what it is I'm going to speak about. So anyhow, how are we all? This fine day. Right, wait a minute. Daniel McCluskey, Scotland Plain, Horizontal Horizons, SIC2712, YouTube, Character Matters, long ago and far away as a fairy tale, exactly. Long, long ago, far, far away, in a distant time beyond anything we can comprehend, but we know what happened. Susie S, hello. Beyond Belief, hello. Perfection, Chelsea Deluxe, oh. Jay Johnson, Phil Jones, Nikon FX, Truther TV, Stock Jockey AB, Pied Piper, Jay Johnson, Sam the Man, Neil McCrobb, Gaining Wisdom, Leanne MC, Have No Sphere, Dr. John D, hello there mate, Party Pack, how do, Execrate, how do Andrew, Varrock for Life, Nobody, Marcus Anaya, Christopher O'Neill, Melomania, Phil Jones, Brad Gunnar, AD Leftnut News, Luca Graham, hello everybody. I hope these are all smashing. So, I'm not going to talk too much today about globe bollocks. I'll be, as I stated the other day, I'll be back busy talking about aspects of, you know, mainstream science pish this very coming week with some observations with Dan, so I'll leave that for now. So, talking about this, so first and foremost, as I say, I'm looking here because I need my triggers to remind me. You realise it's a creation. So, again, you know, if anybody needs the reasoning for that, well, look, again, I go by practicality. And that's my form of reasoning. I'm not really into fantasy reasoning of trying to clutch at thin air to make some sort of semblance of rational thinking based on gibberish, right? So it's very, very simple. You know, for me, information, this complexity, aspects of design, it comes from a mind. As I've highlighted before, you've got two options here. Your options are that, the two options for me is that you're going to go for some finite narrative, which is what mathematicians, mainstream science, all these people have kind of meandered into. So, mathematicians and many people, you cannot box, you cannot comprehend or offer any sort of, what would the word be, kind of geometry to the infinite, the eternal. So mathematicians and these types of people will avoid that, because how do you offer on paper what the infinite and the eternal is? So rather than that, they start opting for like finite narratives. Now again, you could postulate that within the infinite and the eternal, we are in this pocket that is encompassed by, connected to, given rise to that prime mover, the infinite, the eternal. And within that pocket of experience, there's a finite quality to it. So you're born and you die, right? But I'm talking about in the bigger picture as a whole, not just you and I and our experience within it, that, we're born and we die, so we've got this kind of blueprint of beginning and end, right? That's just what the experience of this happens to be. But in the bigger picture, reality as a whole, matter, the whole thing, how then would you come to the conclusion that that can come from nowhere and no thing? Because that's where you're going to end up, and for me it's totally absurd. Again, as human beings, what can you point to through direct experience that would say to me that that's even remotely possible? We know nothing happens without a force, a push. The majority of the time it's through intent. There's some sort of volition involved, particularly when we're talking about information and the complex information that we're dealing with when we're talking about biological life, right? So your only two avenues is the finite and the infinite, right? Now again, the finite, as you can see, they end up at absurdities like the Big Bang. And then they know that it's absurd and that it's not going to work, so they start going, back even further, and it becomes like an infinite regress. When you start to look at this stuff, there's no way out of, for me, the fact that what you're a part of is something the infinite and something eternal. Well, again, you go to a finite thing, or let's say the singularity. Well, where was the singularity? The singularity still had to be somewhere. So again, it's encompassed by wherever it was, and then that, whatever surrounded that is encompassed. At no point can you get to any sort of physicality, and beyond it there is nothing. So, for me, it's ridiculous. I've got to go for the infinite, the eternal. But then that starts to bring, other questions. We start to ask questions of purpose and meaning, morality, ethics, these types of things, spiritual notions, spiritual ideas of what life's about. Is it a playground of learning? Is it spiritual punishment? Is it, it's the God, the Almighty, whatever, progress in his own mind? And again, look, infinite and eternal. So if we're part of the infinite, we're part of the eternal. That means that all possibility, everything that can be, already exists and always will exist and always has done. There's nothing new. You cannot take anything that's infinite or eternal and add anything new to that, nor can you take anything away. And this is the problem when we start talking about this. It becomes difficult for people to grasp that. I'm using words to communicate that to you, but even when I'm saying it, I don't have an image in my mind of what I'm talking about when I say infinite and eternal. I just mean something that has no beginning and has no end. It always has been and always will be. And anything that we can possibly ever experience in this life or another life in any other form, that potentiality, that was always there. You know, even in that scenario, you were talked earlier about birth and death. Well, your whole life you were born and you die. Well, that whole process existed eternally and always will. And every aspect and portion of your life always will exist. That has to. So anyhow, I forget where I was going. That's what starts to happen when you talk about this stuff. So I can't show you it again. I can realise it in my mind, but there is no way for me to show you it. The only thing I can do again is reason with you. Well, fine, these are the two options. If you're going to go finite, we're going to have problems because you're going to come to a point of absurdity where I would be expected to accept your reasoning that nothing gave rise to something, and that's fucking bizarre. I don't even know what. Again, it's a symptom for me of how dumb people have become that they would even allow that. But again, it's backed by sophistry. You've got these priestly figures out, guys like Lawrence Krauss and the likes, who will rattle on over and over again about something from nothing and trying to redefine nothing, and the nothing's actually something, and it's just a big, chasing your tail, trying to escape the fact that what gave rise to this is something infinite, something eternal. And maybe that's the problem. They're scared of that. They know that they're never going to get any certainty from that realisation, so they opt for going the absurd route, because they can delude themselves and make themselves feel secure for a period of time. And again, not only would it just be deluding yourself, when you actually push these sorts of narratives, they're religious, they're ideologies, they have the power of influence over people. As a human being, that's the way we seem to be structured. Well, for me anyway, I've been keeping tabs on my whole life since as far back as I can remember, and been keeping a trace on my actions, what I've learned, going back over things, Again, my mind keeps going blank. I forget where I was going. Fuck it, I'll drink some tea and I'll come back. Well, again, even if people were to postulate the Big Bang, as I said before, they know that they cannot come from a point of nothing, so they're always going to end up at an infinite regress anyway. Because there is no way that you can stop at nothing or even get to the prime mover. Again, that's another absurd portion of this. We as experiencers are always within and encompassed by that infinite eternal. We are effects within it. We are never going to have the ability to be out with. Again, that would be self-defeating. If you and I, in any, whether you believe you're a soul, even if you're in a soul form, you're never going to get out with the entirety of your being, because then you would see that whatever you're seeing is something finite. So again, you would be asking the questions, well, I can see something finite, so that finite's encompassed by something else because it's in a place, whereas it just hanging there in the middle of nothing. But you can see how this, ties into the whole notion of infinite vacuums, empty fucking space, nothing. There's no nothing, there's slight particles. So, you start asking, well, if it's created, who, why, and for what? And again, I've wrote that down. What are you supposed to do? Do you surrender yourself to that? I always feel as if I've got this fight where I'm not going to just let go. I'm not going to submit and surrender myself to any form of idea, right? And it can be a burden sometimes. Sometimes I look at religious people with their faith, and at times when I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, I go, I wish I could just throw my hands up and submit myself to some idea. But in that regard, would it not then require my belief in it? Say a Christian, who follows their religion, was coming to me with their story of creation and existence. I would need to invest my faith and my belief in that story, that idea, in order to just submit myself. Right, that's it. This is my place within the creation and the whim of the God and all this. And for me, it's really difficult. I can't just submit myself and let go. Particularly when the ideas don't make sense to me and I see contradictions in them. And again, I'm no bashing on any of these particular religion. Religion is one of the things that it's your subjectivity, it's your private business, and so it should remain. Right? I'm not here telling you shouldn't believe, you shouldn't have faith. That's up to you. I'm just talking about why things don't make sense to me. So I struggle with that. That's what, getting back to it. Human beings, we seem to have that ability, as I was talking about earlier about keeping tabs on my life. We have the ability to hold on to that and try and build a picture and reason our existence. And so far, I've learned certain things in my life, but I've not learned anything that would make me go, alright, this is what I'm a part of, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing, this is how I'm supposed to behave, and yada yada yada. Because none of it makes any sense. And I'll get to that in a wee minute. So as I wrote there, do I stop fighting and just submit myself? Again, I always feel like it's the weak option. For me, I don't think anybody should submit themselves to any form of idea. Particularly when it's something as big as what encompasses your whole existence. In this case I'm talking about, the God, whatever people imagine that to be. What if you're wrong? What are you submitting yourself to? I'm just not prepared to do that. Others are able to take that leap of faith and commit to their religious idea. I just don't have that in me. I just feel the need to fight and say, no, I'm not accepting that. I'm going to carry on, I'm going to keep asking the questions. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, I'm not here saying I'm right, they're wrong. I can only tell you from my point of view what makes sense to me and what doesn't. I've already asked that. How can you submit if you don't have any belief in a specific God or creator? That's the same for me. Rebel music, resistance, the older you get, the less I know. And when we say that, the less we know, I'm talking about the bigger picture, who are we and what our existence is. To separate, maybe for people who may be confused by that, we can know certain things, like we've got social constructs. I know parts of guitar, I know what a guitar is. There's certain things that we know, but when I say the less I know, I'm talking about, my existence here. The older I get, the more I realise I know fuck all. When you're younger, you're more driven, you're more quicker to adapt and adopt ideas. Whatever your circumstances are, whatever your society structure dictates to you about what's expected of you, what it means to be successful, having families, having relationships, having careers, having hobbies. When you're younger, you're quicker to just jump in and grasp at these things and making them part of your meaning of your experience, your existence. But the older you get, the more disillusioned you become by all that stuff. You realise that they're empty and that they don't answer any of the fundamental questions. They're purely distractions, which is why I continually say to people, You know, if you don't know who you are, where you are and why you're here, then all these things that you incorporate into your life, they're ideas, they're things that you have a preference for, that you've taken on board, that you've instilled in yourself, that you have made your goals of, whether it be a certain hobby or a career or a relationship or a whatever. These are ideas that they're not related to the bigger questions of where are you, who are you, why are you here. They're just distractions for you to get yourself involved in. And these are the things that people call a life. What is life? Oh, working, getting married, having children, going on holiday, seeing how much money I can get in the bank. Oh, I've experienced different cultures. I went to this culture and experienced that. Oh. But again, that points to my position again about the bigger questions of what this is. And the one thing that's always relevant is the quality of experience. Regardless of what's went on in your life, good times, bad times, indifferent times, there's always been a quality to that, and that quality is your experience of. To paint that picture for you even more, I've spoken about this before, even in a situation of you in a dream, when you're asleep at night and you're dreaming and you wake up in the morning and you recall that dream, in that dream state there's a quality that is the exact same as when you're awake. The quality was the experiential aspect to it. Regardless of what you told yourself about it, or your interpretations of it, or what you think it meant, or any of these things, the one thing that's true and remains consistently all through every aspect of your life is that there's always that portion that experiences it. So people call that consciousness, the soul, the whatever. So that's, you know, that's the position that I stand on in regards to this whole question of creation and its purpose and its meaning. Well, and it's no satisfying for a lot of people because of the injustice, the apparent injustices that they witness or experience in their lives, where they want something bigger, you know, it's got to transcend us, there's got to be a bigger meaning, there's got to be justice dished out and blah blah. For me, it makes sense to me that the whole purpose of creation is experience. No experience that you're going to learn something that you're going to carry over that's going to transcend this and have some bearing on, you know, unless, you know, the infinite and the eternal is broken up into segments and it's like a video game, and depending on how you perform here will grant you access to whatever platform or area you can go to within the next levels of the game, then maybe. But all these ideas and notions of, well, it's like moral based, and there's scorekeepers up there, and which can, you know, we've got this dichotomy again where you're either going to be bad or you're going to be good. So you're either going to be floating about the clouds playing harps with your granny and all that stuff, or you're going to be in fucking hell burning forever. These are just fucking stupid, idiotic, empty notions that human beings still try and cling on to. And for me, I think it's rooted in that insecurity that breeds a need for certainty. And a lot of that, again, for me, could be influenced by what we see as injustices in the world that drives that type of desire to have that this all transcends into some other realm of justice and justification and punishment and reward. I don't know, you know, maybe, again, I can all be honest, maybe I don't go with that because I don't like that idea, because I think it's pretty empty, it's pretty fucking boring. If I analyse my consciousness, the thing that I call me, the I, the self, The only thing that I can identify is that, as I say, all through my life, regardless of what I've been involved in or how saturated I've made myself in any aspect of it, the only thing that's true is the quality of the experience. Just that whole thing, it's a good or a bad experience depending on what you tell yourself about it and what you set yourself up for. So that the good and the bad aspect is just an aspect of the subjective and whatever your expectation is. But whether it was good or whether it was bad, the common thread between the two is that the quality of the experience. You knew what it was like, you were self-aware of being in any given situation. You were aware of the situation that was happening. As I say, even in a dream state, you can become aware that there's a situation happening. So the true self is the experiencer. And again, it's difficult because I'm just using language, but that's as close as I can get to it. So, I mean, I don't know if he's are with me. It's difficult. I try having these conversations, and it is quite difficult. But I see a lot of people who are constantly trying to vie for a meaning to life, and they always overlook the meaning of life, the meaning of the technology, the creation. Is no a meaning that transcends it. It's purely just another aspect of having an experience. And within it, it's a free-for-all. And it's just your Donald Duck, wherever you end up, whatever family you're born into, whatever circumstance you might be born into. Or it might be more sophisticated than that. I mean, you could be signing up for it. This could just be a big technology. And we're all floating about, souls floating about. And we get an invitation or an advert comes on your metaphysical TV. Oh, new fucking tech. We call this Earth life stuff. Sign up, have a go. And then you go in and you pick your specifics of what experience you would like to have. I'm sure people have seen movies like Total Recall. That's the kind of avenue I'm leaning towards here in that regard. This whole notion of divide, that the infinite and the eternal is all divided up. Oh, there's a good bit here, there's a bad bit here, and the bad people go there and the good people... That for me is the schism of human thinking. That's been implanted into human beings. Right? You hear people talking about, we're all one and all that, but no, they fucking bad bastards. Because I'm spiritually fucking enlightened and I'm going to good spiritual places. You bad cunt, you're going to the bad place. Thought we're all one and all that. I don't think these people realise what they mean or what it even entails to say we are all one. Because the infinite, the eternal is one. Always has been and always will be. So for you to think then that you can start dividing bits of it up and isolating bits and trying to eradicate parts of that, then I think you're mentally deranged. You're severely scarred and insecure. Desperately trying to fucking have control. And again, that's one of the things that I do submit myself to. I'm not in control of any of this. The only thing I've got control is where I direct my attention. What do I want to experience? And then you start to learn that I can tell myself different things about any given experience. And if I tell myself different things about any of these experiences, it's going to induce a other quality of experience. I'm going to get emotions, I'm going to get these feelings, depending on what I attach myself to. And you learn that through your life, that when we talk about life and these things, you're the one that's attaching. And it's almost like you come into this experience, if I was to say you're a soul, you come into this experience and it's such a powerful technology that you get so wrapped up in it that you lose and forget what you actually are. You start to think that the experience of this is what you are, rather than what you learned about it and what you told yourself about it, because you are the one that's setting up the network, the whole structure of your experience. So, for me, that makes more sense. I'm not even getting to the point of whether we are a soul or no, and what that even means. Again, it's hard for me to envision that, because again, we're here. This is where we're functioning right now. And I'm only postulating. I'm not telling you, this is my position and this is fucking what it is. But when you start telling me that there's meaning, and that meaning transcends this into the metaphysical, that's when I've got an issue with you, because it's contradictory. If you're a person that honestly believes in the infinite, the eternal, call it God, whatever you want, prime mover, blah blah blah, then surely you must realise that it's always has been and always will be, and anything that's possible, ever happens, will happen, always existed. So how then do you think that your wee experience here somehow is now going to change all that and change an aspect of the infinite and the eternal, or add something new to it? It's fucking preposterous. Totally preposterous. God is real, Jesus is God. Did you ever think to yourself that maybe the Jesus story was like almost like a guide of how to use the technology? That being your physical being, your mind, how it functions. How to keep yourself centred and keep yourself balanced so that you don't become embroiled within the technology and lose yourself in the technology. Maybe the Jesus story is just something like that. Like guide rails through your life, rather than all this fucking nonsense about it being a guy. And you don't need to think or have any responsibility, because as long as you fucking worship this fucking thing, I just, all that fucking story, I went through it, and for me it's a bit retarded, and it doesn't bring any progress. For me it would just stagnate you. Oh right, I've heard the story, right, that's what I have to behave like, right, no worries, Jesus and all that. What if it's just a fucking guide, so that you could have a better experience? Or it's just somebody's idea of how they want this technology to be moulded. They want the souls that are coming in here to behave like this so that they can have a predictable time within this tech. Matt, do be a lift weights and enjoy nature 100%. Get your mind and body right and we don't hurt the earth. You're a Satanist. That's satanic thinking. Again, you know, this is part of the whole divide aspect where people, these are all subjective kind of philosophies, Again, nobody knows the real reason for all this or what's expected of us or anything. But you've got all these people trying to dominate every other person, and they're subjective. Again, it just comes back to you. Whatever story you want to tell yourself, you're going to become the subject of that frame of thinking. Right? So if you adopt that frame of thinking, you're going to subject yourself to that. So if you become a practicing Catholic or whatever, then you're subjecting yourself to a framework of that way of thinking. It's subjective. This is the fucking massive problem in this arena right now, what that we call life. People don't have the ability to separate these things and to realise the wisdom and realising that your subjective preference and wishes are your privacy. You don't have the right to try and enforce them on anybody else. You don't have the right to try and shut down anybody else. Only when they're imposing on you do you then have that right to shut them down in my book. But why are people struggling to figure this shit out? It's subjective. It's your preference. It's your privacy. If it works for you and it's your thing, keep it behind fucking closed doors. It should never be brought out into the public arena and tried to impose on anybody else. That's what causes a shit show. You're coming from a particular, experience point of a set of circumstances that's led you to where you are right now. Joe Bloggs came from a different perspective, a different point, who's led him to have the attitude of, well, I'm going to lift weights and I'm going to indulge in nature. And you get this one saying, you're a fucking Satanist, and you get this one going, oh, you're a hairy-fairy fucking godbrother and fucking... Right, because they're just ideas. And true wisdom would realise, no, hang on a minute, these things are symptoms of the fundamental issue, the real foundation, which is, we don't fucking know. So why are you wasting your fucking time grasping onto this idea and then trying to batter this idea into submission? Waste of fucking time. And in the meantime, causes a fucking shit show for everybody else that's going to suffer it. And it's it's not just about the main religions. It's in every facet of our existence. In this circumstance that we're in right now, where people's subjectivity is going to be spewed out. And battle must be had with other aspects of subjectivity. And you get people latching onto these things and trying to make meaning from them. I'll give you a funny... It's like right now, we've got the thing here happening in Europe, the Euros, right? So in Scotland, right, we've got these factions of people who have attached themselves to religious and political fucking crap that means fuck all, right? It's got no relevance to anybody that lives right now. So you've got two factions, and the two factions I'm going to talk about right now is Glasgow Celtic and Glasgow Rangers, right? Now, on a Saturday afternoon at Ibrox where Glasgow Rangers play, you can go there and you'll hear them singing God Save the Queen and all this fucking stuff, right? And other affiliations to Ireland and yada yada yada, right? So God Save the Queen and all that fucking stuff. Then when it comes to a Scotland international game, these very same people are now singing a national anthem about the English and fucking sending them home to think again, and they're all patriotic, fucking fuck you English bastards and fuck. Then a week later they're back on singing about the Queen, and then at the other end of the fucking scale you get the same thing happening. Singing about Ireland and fuck this and fuck the government and fuck. Next week, Scotland tap on with the Rangers buddies that they've been fucking berating and hating on for the last fucking 6 weeks. Now they're all united for another idea. And that's how easy it is. People just adopt an idea, embellish themselves with it, emotionally commit to it, and then they're just walking contradictions and hypocrites, left, right and centre, and destroying each other for utter nonsense. So now in Scotland, tomorrow evening, you've got England against Italy. All the Rangers fans are probably going to be shouting for England, and then all the Celtic fans will be fucking Ireland, because Ireland's related to the Pope. Italy's got the Pope and all this Catholic stuff, and it just pickles my fucking brain. But I digress. I don't even know why I went here. There was a point to it. I think the point is that subjective ideas and the things that people attach to influence them. And then they commit to them, and then they think they have to behave in a patriotic manner towards their idea that they stand by, because it gives them a feeling of identity and certainty. When the reality is that it's fucking nothing. They're just mentally deranged and insecure, which is understandable. Again, we've been robbed of the very foundations of our existence and fed all this fucking bullshit. So when you don't have that proper grounding, and we have this innate ability to try and reason our existence and have a relationship to the experience, and it's all founded upon these faulty foundations, then you're going to have schizoid crazy behaviours like that. Rather than stopping, having a look at it and realising that it's fucking ridiculous, and that you should stop wasting your time, and that maybe there's people out there that want you to behave like that because the bigger picture will never be revealed, and then we're never going to advance, we're never going to get back to what I feel we were like in times gone by, which was far superior, far more advanced than we can even imagine right now. And that's it. That's, you see how easy it is to get people to adopt these patriotic ideas, and and then you can see how easy it is to get them to adopt absurd ideas and notions like globe Earths, vacuums of space with spinning space testicles that all came from, an infinite dense singularity that with no rhyme or reason to it and all this stuff. But just as I was saying about how ideas can breed a certain behaviour, all that division and schizoid behaviour is rooted in that kind of foundation. Because if you really contemplate that you're part of nothing, that you came from nothing, that there was no rhyme or reason to any of it, then what else do you expect but nihilistic tendencies and behaviours? Again, the absurdities and the contradictions that we live by, that mainstream science is trying to push this shit, and then we've got like law and justice systems that's all based on morals and ethics that transcend us to some higher plane of existence that a god gave us because he created it all, and there's this fucking massive conflict happening, and it's just a contradiction. At what point do we just say we don't know? And what relevance is that to us who live right now? Get it to fuck. Is it that difficult to work that out? But the problem is again, you're dealing with people who are emotionally entrenched and attached to these ideas, and it's no different as trying to speak to somebody about the globe. They've got that same emotional attachment to it. It's been given to them, it's been presented to them, the sophistry has taken effect, the image is there, it's been instilled, and that's it. That's now their grounds, that's their foundation of their whole existence. And then you want to prod that and question it. Anyhow. This football pish, however many years you've lived, look at the hype surrounding any kind of major final, and I say this to people all the time. Or remember the 1988 Scottish Cup final and how, oh, it's a big thing. What did it change in your life? What did it mean? How did that event affect 25 years down the line? What significant role has it played in anything? Fuck all! That's why they just repeat it every fucking year and have people going around in a loop, striving and hoping for these things that are empty, that give them fuck all. The only thing that they do is distract them from the bigger picture and asking the fundamental questions, which for me is where they should be. I'm sick of all this shite that I've heard my whole life. Oh, you're too deep. Alright, so I should just be shallow then and fucking make up any old shite and delude myself and run about my life grasping at it as if I've got a clue. Wes sent me an email, hold on. Have a read of this quote and decide if you feel this should be shared. Maybe there's an emotional side you never dealt with. Maybe there's some truth that you haven't yet glimpsed or known what to do with. Whenever you get triggered, somebody pulled the trigger, perhaps. But who's the one carrying the ammunition? How you handle people who trigger you, that's your call, but at least you know you're the one with all the explosive inside you. You get so much liberation if you find out what that ammunition is and how you got it. Through getting to know yourself, and that's where freedom actually lies, where if nobody had the power to trigger you, not because you were closed and shut down and isolated, but because you're totally aware of yourself, well, that's where liberation actually is. The point of compassion and inquiry is priceless. To drill down to those core stories that people tell themselves, that's to actually get them to see what story they're telling themselves unconsciously, what those beliefs are, where they came from, and guide them to the possibility of letting go of those stories, or letting go of the hold that those stories have on them. Dr. Gabor. Well, that's the kind of wisdom that I'm talking about. It's exactly what I'm trying to convey right now. And I totally agree with that. It's exactly what I've just been saying. It's people are triggered because everything in your life is your own expectation, your own demands, your own wants, your own wishes, your own belief system. Whatever you adopt, whatever you incorporate into yourself, you become subject to that. And that's the power of this technology. That again for me is like, you know, lessons that should be given. Like any other form of technology or game you play, you learn the rules of the game. Where for us, we've never had that. It's dressed up in philosophy and stories and you know, it's never given in a specific, you know, you don't go to school and have proper education where, you know, you're encouraged of how to think and how to perceive and break your perceptions and look at things from different perspectives. That doesn't happen. You're just given particular narratives and you're supposed to somehow align yourself and fit in with that. And again, that ties into what I'm saying about these people who adopt these ideas. That's the narratives they're given through school. And here in Scotland, you know, you've got all this pride of patriotism in Scotland and England and Ireland and fucking... And you've got all these factions of people who are identifying themselves with that, and right at that moment they create that structure. They then become the person, they act out behaviours and rebel against things that they think opposes it and yada yada. So people are setting themselves up for these games left, right and centre. The problem is we don't know the actual, you know, set of rules for this game. We've never had any proper guides. It might be there in different forms, but it's all in a web of fucking smoke and mirrors and misinformation. And you're supposed to decipher through that. Where again, the best method for me is to think yourself. Sometimes reading a book or a particular aspect of philosophy or whatever it may be is enough for you to break your perception and see things from a different point of view, and then that might bring you clarity and progress internally. But it always happens internally. Always. what you're experiencing is down to what you've adopted and what you've bought into. It's the same with the trigger aspect. If you identify as a Celtic supporter and I represent this stuff from Ireland and blah blah, then you've got somebody who says, well, fuck the Pope or whatever it might be, I'm supposed to react to that. And a lot of it is people act on these things based on how they think they should. I laugh about this all the time. I'll give you another example of this. How we treat death. I've spoken about this before, so I know I'm repeating myself. You go to funerals and I'm always uncomfortable with these things because I know what the learned behaviour, I know what I'm expected to behave like, but internally I'm not really feeling that. Then I watch these fuckwits that show up at funerals and it's like, it's a competition. Who can be the most mournful? Who can be the best dressed, most mournful, sorry-assed fucking motherfucker at the funeral? Who can out-mourn the next? And that's the image of being mournful. That's what they've been taught how to treat death as. With fear and moan and self-pity and woe's me and learned behaviours. But I know each one of these people is feeling the same as me, but they just don't have the balls to say, well, I'm not going to act out what's expected of me because of the peer pressure. So they all keep each other in this wee fucking pantomime of expected behaviour. And I'm terrible. You know, I'm not a drama queen. I don't bring anybody drama. I would never come to your door and go, oh, fucking this and that. Ooh. But you get people like that. You get these people that are dying to tell you about a tragedy. Oh, such and such died. And my initial reaction is to fucking laugh. But I'm laughing at their learned behaviours. Because they're so, to me, they feel unnatural. They're not right. I know that they're just projecting what they think's expected or how they're supposed to act. And I just don't fucking get it. I mean, we talk about religions and we talk about stories and I always say it, right, well listen then, I mean, say for talking's sake, we never can know, right, and we're always going to be in this kind of bewilderment, right, well, fuck it. If we're going to have a story, let's make it what I'm saying. Life's not to be taken seriously. Life is just the quality of experience, and there's a power to this technology. You know, ideas and things you take on board, the mind's going to incorporate them, and you're going to become subject to these things, and it's really just a big technology. Don't take it too seriously. You know, there's consequences and different things that can go on. We can have a proper education, and when you die, you just get back to the fucking infinite and the eternal, and it's all good and it's great. Let's have fucking stories like that kind of lift people up, that give them a better sense of fucking pride or positivity or confidence, whatever it may be. No, that's other shit that strips your self-confidence, that puts you in places of fear and anxiety and woe's me. Oh, my granny's dead, she's got to be worm-fed, I'm never going to see her again. Ooh. Maybe if I behave properly, I'll get to the Golden Gates and I'll have my own cloud and my harpy thing, and I can high-five my granny whenever I like. How fucking boring. How utterly stunting and fucking retardedly boring is that? I loved my granny. Well, I tell you what, I don't want to spend eternity on a cloud next to her, because I'll get bored out my tits. And so would she. I don't take offence to the fact that she would get bored. That seems to be a required necessity within us that keeps us moving all the time. You know? Infinitely. Boredom is a necessity. Well, that's it, beyond belief. Although it is selfishness and neediness. And again, the insecurity aspect makes people opt for wanting certainty. So they'll adopt this idiot shit. Your granny and that's floating about in wee clouds with fucking angel wings hovering about. I mean, again, is that all we've got to look forward to? When we shuffle off of this fucking place, what? Now we've got to hang about in a metaphysical form and fucking watch? Oh, I'll just hang about with my son sitting on his shoulder. That's not my responsibility. Fuck that. I would get bored of that as well. Look at this cunt having fun, shagging his bird and driving his motorbike and having a smoke and a cup of tea. I'm just stuck here in metaphysical fucking puffy smoke land. I can't even have a fag, I can't fucking drive a motorbike. I've just to sit on the shoulders of people and argue with the bad angel. What the fuck is going on in people's brains? Effed up world, beyond the magic curve, that is a stereotype. Effed up world, I don't know what you mean. You need to give me specifics. I've lost track of what you mean. I know that you're quite a religious person. Again, I'm not here to bash on anybody's religion, as I've stated, in case you missed it. I'm talking about, you know, my subjectivity, and I'm offering my reasoning and my thoughts. And I respect your right to have your thoughts and blah blah. I just don't think that your subjectivity should be pushed onto anybody else. But if you're willing to reason with me and have an actual reasoned discussion about these things, then I'm always open to that. So maybe you've picked me up wrong. But there's no attack and defend going on here. So if you like, you can extrapolate. Pragmatic, how's it going? Hope you're well. Do you want to come in and have a chat? If anybody wants to come in and have a chat about any of this, send me an email. People always seem keen. I don't know why they've difficulty wanting to have a chat about it. I'm not going to eat you. The Bible does foretell the truth of the creation being revealed to the world at the end. Left out world, I mean, I've spoke to people, Andrew would back me up in this. I see a lot of wisdom in these things, this literature, these philosophies and these books. I'm not poo-pooing any of it. And I see correlations between things like the Bible and what's unfolding in the world. And I've said it before, I mean, I hope that there is going to be an unravelling and that we're going to get justice and this shit show is going to come to an end and all the fucking vile, putrid stuff is going to go. But I'm no hand-wave dismissing with it, just get rid of the people. For me, I always try and comprehend and understand what's actually happening. And I don't have the grounds to have a leap of faith and just submit myself to something like the Bible. It's just me. No worries, effed up world. Exactly, Andrew. I don't want a harp. I want a big stinky, smelly, distorted, saturated guitar. Right. Where I can stand on my cloud and fucking scalp a fucking E chord and blow all the other clouds away. Right, Granny, fuck off, I'm bored of you now, fucking take that. Aye, rebel music resistance, it's again, you see the power of these ideas and these concepts and people adopting them, you know, even if it's through ignorance. They don't even really need to comprehend anything. If they just adopt it at a base level, then they become subject to it. So this whole pandemic fucking shite was easy to roll out, because you see how easy people adopt any nonsensical absurdity. And that's the problem, you know, with the Bible stuff. Maybe the Bible would have more credence to me if I could actually sit and have a conversation with somebody that's got a proper grasp on it. I've not got the patience or the time. You know, I'm 44 now. I've never read the fucking Bible or any of these things. I've not got the want, the desire to sit and fucking try and fathom it out, because it's too confusing. Well, I hope so, effed up world. I fucking hope so. Right. I think a lot of the evils in the world for me, the parts that I don't like is when it's given away that it's Satan that's done it. When the responsibility lies with the individuals. If these people have carved their own path, that's their responsibility. It should never be shut to either a saviour or a bad guy. It's that person that made those fucking choices. It's their responsibility, and that's the fruits of their endeavours, right? That's where I think, you know, I have issues with these types of things. And maybe that is the case, and I just don't comprehend things like the Bible, because as I say, I've not read it. So I would be commenting from ignorance. And although I'm having jovial jokes and laughs about certain notions and ideas, it's only the offerings of people and their shallow thinking and reasoning, you know, fluffy clouds and harps and the likes. But William Wallace, again, there's a thing. Jesus' words were amazing. Are you one of these people that's a literal man, a thing, rather than it being a state of mind or a state of being, and trying to, you know, accomplish yourself to be, you know, the Jesus framework of being, rather than I'm going to follow this guy? Well, in regards to that, you know, turn the other cheek, I think the finer details are never spoken about. You know, when I hear that, you know, love your enemy, turn the other cheek and be passive. You know, if I've got an adversary, say you know, and saying something like boxing, and you get these two people who, they hate each other and they fucking, they've got desire to hurt and harm, but really at the end of it, they realise that without each other they could never have had the experience they had. And it's not that, you know, it's not that if somebody comes and tries to smack me in the face, I'm not just going to turn the other cheek and let them hit me or assault me. I'm going to fucking fight back and do what I need to do to get myself out of that situation. So I don't really know what that means when it's talking about, you know, turn the other cheek and be passive. At the end of the day, I'm somebody who does accept every aspect of the spectrum of being. So I might not agree or side with certain behaviours or certain preferences or whatever, but what I do is I accept that they exist. So in that regard, I'm turning the other cheek. I'm not trying to dominate them from my subjective position in order to make them what I want the world to be. So there you could say, well, I'm being passive and turning the other cheek. But in a situation of aggression and violence coming at me, I'm not going to turn the other cheek and love the person that's attacking me or whatever. So do you know what I mean? This is what I'm saying about how a lot of people I think can get put off with these kind of statements, because there's no any detail and specifics of circumstance and different events. It's just this encompassing a turn the other cheek. So what does that mean then? Oh, he's raping your wife, so turn the other cheek and love him. I mean, what's this? A Wheatstone Bridge is a practical demonstration. What are we talking about here? No, it doesn't make any sense, Susie. Yes, that's what I mean. You know, I think, you know, we can look at these things and see wisdom and what it may be pointing towards and leaning towards. You know, it's in regards to what I was saying earlier, your subjectivity and my subjectivity, I can turn the other cheek. If you want to shut your door at night and tell yourself you're a manfish, and you believe in golden leprechauns, and that golden leprechauns are the sole purpose of your existence, I mean, I can turn the other cheek and be passive to that, because that's your subjectivity, that's your internal narrative. It has no bearing on me. I would need to be insecure. So there I can take that passage, that statement, and say, well, there's me being passive and turning the other cheek, and it's healthy to do that, because your subjectivity has no bearing on me whatsoever. You do not define what I am. But if you're going to come at me with a baseball bat and try and take something from me forcefully, then in that kind of situation I don't turn the other cheek and become passive. Aye, that's it, you know, pragmatic. You know, people fear things, particularly things that they don't comprehend, and they want to shut them down and eradicate them. Well, I've always been different. Certain things in my life have scared me, I've been fearful, I've been anxious about certain things, but I've learned that I don't want to run away. It gives me no progress to run away. So I turn my attention and I try and comprehend what the thing is, how it came to be, what it was rooted in, what gave rise to that, what caused that spark in order for that sequence of events to lead to whatever it is I'm experiencing at that time. Rather than just being fearful and shunning it away and putting myself into a deluded corner of naivety and delusion. So you would agree that every creature has an inherent right to self-defence? Well, of course. Every creature does, when it's in that situation, trying its best to defend or get away or whatever. Graham Heaven. Anything that's useful, flat non-rotating plane, any more. Is this a derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model? I'm not getting the links, but again, I appreciate people sending me these things. It's probably because I don't speak about it all the time, but we threw all this stuff a long time ago. The derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model, the NASA document talking about a non-rotating flat earth and yada yada. As I say, for me, you know, back then, when you just want to influence people. There's no specifics and no detail, there's no real comprehension about what that means. But when you get right to the roots of the geometric principles and the assumptions that are made, so I've been talking about you know, any form of design or anything that's done on paper will be done from a horizontal and a vertical datum. Because geometry, earth measure, right? That's the geometry we apply. The world in which we apply practical living is a Euclidean 3 space, right? That's what everybody's using. So that's the difference between comprehending what that actually is than just being somebody that wants to score points or influence somebody through ignorance. Oh, NASA's document says, but that doesn't offer any specifics to anybody. Why does it say that? Go into the geometry aspects of flight, radar. As I say, it's set up through the principles of a plumb and horizontal datum. Nobody wants to speak to me. I'm getting a bit sick of this shit. Why do you not want to speak to me? What is the matter? Are you scared? Hello, Teddy boy. FPV Angel, hello. So anyhow, where was I? Aye. So my whole point again, look, separating the subjective, objective, we're equipped here, we operate at this level, we're part of the physical material world, we have certain apparatus to explore it and to experience it. So for me, we should have the focus there. That's going to give us much more in regards to the bigger picture and what we're a part of than endlessly going round in circles with ideas, interpretations. And again, to the religious people, if it's all about the measure of your heart and your intent and how you walk your life and blah blah, then that's no your jurisdiction, that's no your responsibility to have any focus there on what anybody else is up to. Under your, you know, religious practice, that's the duty of your God. That's what its responsibility is, no yours. And if that's what you really believe, then so be it. Let it go. It's all going to be dealt with. Stone Bridges rectifier of sin, practical demonstration of demonology. I don't know what's going on, missed parts here, I think. Again, with Trackmatic, a lot of that stuff's kind of cryptic. And maybe you get it at the level that you're at, but when we're trying to communicate with each other, for me we have to find a way that we can offer that up that's palatable, that I can digest, so that I can grasp where you're at and your thinking and reasoning. But when we just say things like that, it's kind of cryptic and I can't make any sense out of that. What does that mean? That is why I know I need Jesus. If you don't know that you need Jesus, then you don't know yourself. Again, cryptic. That's not conducive to it. If you're somebody with an intent of some pure religious, influence. Stop being fucking cryptic. That doesn't mean anything to me. That's just cryptic jargon. Why can you people not formulate a method if that's your true intent, is to get some significant message across to people? Cut the cryptic shit out. Start trying to make it, palatable, in a form that people can digest. Especially for me. I don't get all the cryptic religious word salads. I end up just turning my attention off. And I start having the view that these people are just getting a messiah complex, who just like to say this stuff because it sounds good to them. You're not having a communication with me. There's no dialogue happening here. And if your sole purpose is to save my soul or whatever, then you better sort your shit out, because you're not doing a very good job. If you want to save souls based on your religious teaching, then formulate a way to communicate it to people, to the common man, to people that are not religious. I want to convey common sense and reasonable thinking to people that I meet in the street that I've dialogues with. So I don't come from the level of, right, I've been involved in this for a long time, I've got a grasp on this language, I'm just going to bamboozle them. What's the point in that? There's no point in me going out into the middle of the street and talking about Einstein's equivalence principle in relationship to motion and the possibilities of what they is. They're just going to go, what? That's what it feels like to me, Bjorn. It's like a form of domination. It's like an ego type centred thing, where these people want to portray themselves to be some sort of superior intellects. I talked about that before. Guys like Ken Wheeler, and they're trying to convey this apparent wisdom. And if you really were wise, then you would stop trying to appeal to the hubris intellect, the one that fancies themselves as some sort of superior thinker or an academic. I mean, who are you trying to fucking convince? If you're trying to convey stuff to you and I, the real people, then you need to bring your language down to a level where we can decipher it and have a flowing discussion about it. Look up Wheatstone Bridge, I shall. Again, it's maybe just Magnus, because I don't know anything about it. So it sounds cryptic to me, but maybe once I've got a better comprehension, then I would know what you were meaning. See again? That's the problem. Good servant, and I know you may be coming from good intentions, but to me that's just word salad. For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved it is the power of God. I'm telling you, it's just words that went in and bounced off of a spongy barrier, and nothing went in, never formulated any sort of comprehension of what that even means. If you fully comprehend it, is there a way that you can convey that in a way that other people could relate to it and see the wisdom and what the message is? Effed Up World sent me an email. Yeah, I'd love a chance to talk to you about some of these things. I want to show you some things you may not be aware of concerning Jesus and what he said he would do in the end. The whole world would be deceived about the order of the stars at the end, and he would show them the truth, and many would receive it and many would reject and overlook it. Anyways, Joe Hill, thanks for speaking about these things. Joe, anytime at all. I mean, I'm always open to having conversations, discussions. I would like that. You know, anybody that can offer up a discussion and something that may benefit me or have some new awareness of whatever, then fine. As I say, I already grasped that. As I say, I've been speaking to Andrew, Execrate 200, who would testify to that I've made that statement. I can see correlations. I can see correlations between like what you've just stated and what's unraveling in the world right now. And obviously you've got the aspect of, well, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? Are they making it happen? Is it are people using it as some sort of blueprint and trying to fulfill it? Again, rabbit holes start to open up left, right and centre. But I do admit that there is an unravelling going on. I mean, I've been experiencing that my whole life. My whole life feels as if it's been leading up to this stuff. Again, just my subjectivity. I'm not making it as an objective statement. It's just how I have felt, what I've sensed through my life. And I think it would be fucking great. I say it all the time. I think this place is an absolute fucking abomination. I want to see the whole fucking thing crumbling. If I had my way, I would find the off switch and I would hit it without any hesitation. Wipe it all clean. Let's play a new game. We've learned for all that shit that we brought into the game. Now we can get rid of that and we can start afresh, make it a better game. But I'm still not happy about the process of this whole finite place where one thing eats another thing and it's all about surviving and animals living on the edge of fear continually in case something eats it. It's a wonderful creation. Loving gods made it. So again, when I see maybe aspects of wisdom, and you'll need to excuse my ignorance or my interpretation, I'm pretty sure in the Bible it talks about how this thing is Satan's. And that kind of makes sense to me because of course it's temporary. It has to be perpetuated through a process of consumption. One thing consumes another thing for, you know, the fuel in order to propel it forward, to keep everything in motion. Because in order to have motion, you require a constant input. You need a source of energy. And everything in this experience is vibrating in motion continually, the whole fucking thing. Even if you think that's a static cup, it's no. Can it be? To us, at our vantage point, relative to us, it appears to be stationary. But in reality, that can't be the case. It's got to be in motion in some form or another, or else I wouldn't be able to experience it. So, Satan created it. Satan created the globe. So I'm taking it that in your view, Satan is a literal being, entity, whatever it may be. So if God is the eternal, the infinite, and encompasses all, then surely Satan resides within that God, that prime mover, the infinite, the eternal. Do you know what I mean? This is what I'm saying, where things like that start to break down for me. So what am I supposed to do with that? What is Satan representative then? If you're going to take Satan as a literal thing, then Satan could only have been given rise to from the infinite, the eternal, the God, the prime mover, whatever it is. So how then can Satan be something separate from God? How does that compute? We're back to dichotomies here, fragmentation, dividing things. So it's a necessity then. With no evil, good wouldn't exist. So then it's a necessity again for us to what, experience or learn something. Again, we're back to this again. We're learning for what purpose? To progress within the games or different levels that we can progress to, because it sure can't be about changing some aspect of the infinite and the eternal, because all the possibilities must have already existed. This is when it starts to fucking hurt my brain. God's law. What's God's law? The animals believe in a God. No, they're not as schizoid as us. Travelling commando. Animals are not afflicted by mind viruses. For God so loved the world that he created demons. I mean, this is the cartoonery that my mind starts to go to. Oh, they're all having a good time down there. I'm not liking it, they're all having a good time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cause them some fucking trauma. So here I'm going to make this wee guy call him Satan. Right, you cunt. You hate me and all that. Right, I get it. Right, get in there and fuck with him. All dogs and cats go to heaven. I kind of feel sorry for them if that's the case. If they're forever going to be a cat and a dog, they'll never have the experience of driving a vehicle, or maybe there is. I mean, I can't rule out the possibility. I mean, God or whatever it is can have anything. So you could have cats and dogs racing motorbikes in some other dimension for all I fucking know. I don't fucking know. And again, we're back to this kind of static cats and dogs go to heaven with my granny. See, this is when you start to realise that I just don't think we're equipped. And it starts to tell me that for the purposes of experiencing this sort of technology, it's not really useful for us to go to that. I think that existential stories are a result of some schism or trauma that bred some insecurity that then breeds us to start opting to try and find and clutch at certainty. Satan came to kill and destroy. For what purpose? What's the purpose of all this Satan stuff? Get right to the core of it for me so that I can try and reason with it. God made Satan to come and fuck with us or whatever. Are we products of Satan then? Did Satan give rise to us? I mean, I'm confused. Don't answer that right now because I need to go for a piss and make a cup of tea. Please hold the response and I'll be back in a minute. Right, so God made us all, am I right? Did God make the earth, or did Satan make it? And then, what's the purpose of it all again? I'm missing the point here. Are we supposed to learn something? Are we being tested? I mean, can I get the specifics? Satan's intention is to take people's eternal freedom and the life after this one to be separate from God. How is that even possible though? Only as a, you know, because how can, if God is the infinite and the eternal that gave rise to everything, then how can we ever become separated from that? We can only become separated internally in your own mind's eye and be deluded and blinded in that sense, but you'll never ever be separated. Am I getting that right? Is that what you mean? Well, I've spoke about that before. In the beginning was the Word, so was that referencing that what holds matter together is resonance, like a sound frequency? And I took that from the Bible. But that's what I mean, when you can't say, if you can't be separated from the prime mover, so it can only separate you in your own mind's eye. You'll never actually be separated, because if you were actually separated from the prime mover, you would cease to exist in a kind of physical sense, a material sense. Life is a test. You should drive to Speaker's Corner on a Sunday morning. A test for what? A test for what? What's the outcome of this test then? What would the test be about? What's the outcome? What am I being tested for? Am I going to be graded? Am I going to be sent to the appropriate level of my grading? And is it a endless, perpetual... The plan is to separate you from yourself. Well, we can see that here in this life. People lose their centre, as I was talking about that earlier, talking about the Jesus thing. Maybe the Jesus is a kind of handrail guide to keep yourself centred, so that you don't become incorporated and saturated by this, the technology that we call life, and then lose yourself to that. You know, I always spoke about that in the previous. I wonder if what people tell themselves and what belief structures they hold when they're here and they're alive is somehow going to affect them when they leave here. You know, is there dimensions of people who are floating about in clouds perhaps? Is there people in a dimension where it's fucking burning fire and torture? Is there people in a dimension where they've married their fucking horse? I mean... Effed up world, do you want to have a conversation with me right now? What I'm going to do, Joe, is I'm going to send you, I'll open up a hangout and I'll send you a link and you can click it. If you don't, fair dues, we'll have a chat private or some other time whenever you like. I'm just going to stick this in there, and if you fancy it, it's much easier than trying to communicate through a text. Right, sent that. Spiritual centre, for me, the spiritual centre would always be that the only thing I can identify that would call me is an experiencer. No good, no bad, evil, indifferent, you know, nothing. Just the quality of being able to perceive and experience. That's it. And I can tell myself whatever I want about any of these things and involve myself and envelop myself in them. And that's what I'm saying, is the wisdom to keep you centred so that you don't get too wrapped up. Thanks.
Welcome. Oh, you, I was going to say, stick my door.
I've been telling people that for the last 3 or 4 years, Stuart McDonald, about food. You know, everybody talks about control mechanisms. The number one source of control for any dictators or whatever is always the food supply. People can't eat money, can't eat cars or, you know, any of that stuff. When it comes right down to it, the number one form of control is the food supply. And again, I'm not a doomsdayer or any of that stuff, but when I see things happening, it's always good just to be prepped in case, because right now things are uncertain. So I would advise the same for everybody. There's nothing the matter with just preparing. You are in an uncertain time right now and you don't know how it's going to go down. As long as your dog's fed, you're no bothered, so you can eat the dog. Is that what you mean? Keep the dog fat, so that if I ever need to, well, that's the thing, and I've been attacked for that. Invisible. Where, and I was mentioning it earlier, I can never get a point where I can just submit myself. I always feel like I'm my own authority. Again, I don't create any of this, and I'm intellectually aware enough to realise that I'm not responsible for this creation, whatever it may be, but I'm not going to submit myself to any kind of idea of what that creator is, what it wants from me. There's a fight that continually goes on with me, and I'm going to fight right to the end. I'm never going to submit myself to any idea. And again, speaking to these religious people, it's in your teachings that God's the judge. So don't judge me for it. I don't judge you for it. If there's a God of justice and all that, then he's going to know what's in my heart. He's going to know what my intention was. He'll know everything about me, because at the end of the day, it created me. Right, if I lost your attention, I mean, I don't know what people are in this fucking meandering, whatever it is. Listen to the celebrities, they tell you directly they made a deal with the devil to get where they're at. Well, I've been fucking trying to make a deal for a long time. I've been a poor skint cunt. I've been asking for a deal, whether it be a fucking god, demon, alien. I mean, why are they not coming and visiting me? Is it because they know I'm not going to take any of their shit? Do you think that's what it is? Maybe Satan's fucking scared to come and have a conversation with the man in the shed in case I fucking tear him apart. I mean, I've watched some Living Waters. I went off Living Waters when I heard them talking about the Earth stuff and spewing these fucking pseudoscience crap about space testicles and all that rubbish. Cheers, Jack Stander. Hopefully. I mean, I know it's always in people's minds. Because you just don't believe in it enough. Well, that's the whole point, Arwen. As I said earlier, how can I submit myself to any of these things if I don't really believe in them? And does my belief then create it? Or does my belief act like a key to access? So, if I believe in Satan, does that mean I become a rock star? Because he'll come and have a chat with me? Or what I mean? Hello, Joe.
Hey, how you doing, Del?
I'm alright, mate. How's yourself?
I'm doing good. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine, mate. You're just not going to be able to see me because my camera's tied to the OBS thing.
Oh, okay, sure. I actually got mine off. I got just like a logo going, I think. Is that, hopefully that's what you're seeing.
Sorry, I can hear you, you're alright.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting stuff you're talking about to me. Because there is so many different points of view on especially this topic of like the Bible or Jesus, and you know, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, a lot of this seems to be pointless to even talk about in this world, and like you were saying, if there's an off switch or like a reset switch, you'd hit it with no hesitation.
Yeah.
That I totally understand that, and to be honest, I think that that's what God is actually. He feels that way.
Right.
That's what I believe, and a lot of my belief comes from just what I've read in these books, the Bible, and then a lot of these other apocrypha books and the Book of Enoch and stuff. Those prophets, people call me crazy for saying this, but you know how you were talking about sound frequency, like,
yeah.
That is the beginning in the Bible. That's how it went. He spoke all these things. He declared them. Mm-hmm. And so what my understanding is that this might sound crazy, but this is what it really has made me believe in these ideas over the last 5 years is, okay, rockets of all things, the sound from rockets, yeah, that it shakes the air. You know, it's like, if you look up on Google what's the loudest sound that men have ever made, there's like detonations, but other than the moment of a detonation, the loudest sound that men have made is the Saturn V.
Right.
And that frequency, I'm going to open up. There's a chapter in the Book of Enoch that talks about the sky being shaken and everything kind of ended in one day, and it was because of sound, and it happened to be men riding in, he said, wagons or chariots in the sky, and it was the sound from those chariots that made the whole heavens quake and shake and fall down. Basically, the darkness consumed the earth.
Do you think that's a reference? And you know, we know in harmonics and sound frequency that if you can match the certain pitch of something, you can disturb it. Like we see it with tuning forks. So you can, you know, align a tuning fork with a glass, say, and when it matches the resonant frequency or pitch of the glass, it will shatter it. So I mean, I can see relevance to that in regards to it being a kind of physical event, where if there's an aspect to the technology, then that frequency could disturb it, or you know.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, actually. I never, like as an actual physical frequency, like above it or below it would be fine, but if you hit the right, I don't know the proper words, but if you hit the right tone or whatever, that it would match that, or basically tear it apart or something.
Yeah.
So in this, just one verse in Enoch chapter 57, it says, "And it came to pass after this that I saw another host of wagons, and men riding thereon, and coming on the winds from the east and from the west to the south. And the noise of their wagons was heard. And when this turmoil took place, the holy ones from heaven remarked it, and the pillars of the earth were removed from their place. And the sound thereof was heard from one end of heaven to the other in one day. Now, people call me crazy because I say there's rockets in the Bible, and maybe that does sound crazy, but what I've come to learn is that the Bible makes claims. It makes claims.
Yeah.
Jesus made claims that he knew the end. He knows the end from the beginning. You know what I mean?
But-
and
but-
it predicts things.
And
And
that's the thing.
so
But that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, people could say that what you're doing there is you're making correlation. You're taking something from your experience and then superimposing that onto that interpretation. That's what it could be meaning. And I mean, it's fair enough to postulate that that's a possibility. And I know that people entertain that kind of way of thinking, but for me, I can comprehend what you're saying right now, but I don't ever open myself up and say, well, that's I've got this answer and that's a certainty and that's a fact. Just like you, I can take interpretations and I can superimpose things. I can make correlations between things, but I would never be ignorant enough and I'm not suggesting that you're ignorant. I don't mean that, but for me personally, I could never be ignorant enough to think that I've solved something or I have an answer to something. But I can see the process of your reasoning, which is fair enough, and that's the only thing I ever ask of people. In order for me to comprehend your position, you have to be able to reason with me and communicate in a language that I can comprehend and decipher. As I was saying with some of this biblical type stuff, it's all kind of cryptic and jumbled up word salad, and I can never process it and incorporate it as something that I can comprehend. So. Yeah,
it shouldn't be cryptic, because if you know what I mean, if some of the verses seem to be cryptic, and I guess I couldn't really comment on that, but I do know that a lot of the, how just for an example, the book of Revelation, a lot of people think that that's like symbolic or what's the other words they use, like it's not an actual literal thing, story or vision that the author was shown.
Nice.
And there's some crazy things in there. If you I guess maybe I read it in a way because of what I see in the world. I read it in a certain way. Does that make any sense?
But that's what I'm saying. For me, it would be more productive for you to convey that. What for me would be more productive is for you to convey your position, how you're reasoning with that, how you interpret it, and how you relate it to events that you see in the world or your experiences. Because then me as an experiencer, I can relate to what you're saying. But when you regurgitate, and again, I don't mean that you're doing that, when people just regurgitate what they're reading from it, I can't relate to that in any way, shape or form. I need to understand the processes of that individual so that I can see the position that they're coming from, then I can relate to it.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, because I agree with you, there's, we live, I think everyone is probably subject to this, that we live our lives, and when we do read something and it seems to correlate, or even if it doesn't, but if we can somehow come up with in our minds, oh yeah, that seems to correlate, well, that's kind of like what we do. Do you know what I mean? So I think that all throughout time, there's probably been people saying similar things to what I've been saying. Oh yeah, this is in the Bible,
Yeah. I mean,
but I do. Oh, go ahead.
No, just in my mind there, I'm running through things, and as you were talking about with the ships and stuff, I mean, I could then, just to show you how you can interpret things, I could say, well, maybe that's referencing that there's another area, that other beings arrived in their ships and they disrupted this area, they poisoned this well, and metaphorically uprooted this from its foundations, because this was never the intended path for this kind of pocket or this pond to go in. So these beings that were advanced from another area arrived here and started to impose their ideology on this area. So then I could, just as you've interpreted it there, I could interpret that from the Bible, that's what it was referencing. Do you know what I mean? Just to show you an example.
Oh, I do, yeah. I understand what you're saying in full. I do. So there's other reasons. I mean, if I was just to read one or two, convincing verses or something, it would be hard to convince me. But there's so many that there's verses talking about a land that's hidden throughout time, and then at the end, the land wouldn't be hidden anymore; it would be openly displayed.
Yeah.
And I'm like thinking about flat Earth,
Yeah.
And then, like in the Book of Enoch, that whole book is full of, I guess I would call them like prophecies of the end of days. One of them, I put it in the chat a while ago. One of them is in Enoch chapter 80. It really does describe a world being deceived about the heavens, about what the heavens are. It says, "And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners.
Yeah.
And the thoughts of those on the earth shall err concerning them."
Yeah.
And
I can relate.
it actually. Oh, go ahead.
No, I can relate to that. If you've ever paid attention to me, I always talk about that, about how the globe decenters people, gives them a false foundation, a false platform for them to reason and comprehend the entirety of their existence. If that's the position that
Yes.
they're standing from, everything that they go forward from there is going to be a falsity. So I can
Yep.
relate to aspects of that where I can interpret it and see it as a form of wisdom. But again, I have to be aware that that's from my position and my interpretation of it. And again, because I can interpret it like that, doesn't mean to say that I believe what I'm saying. I can just perceive that as a possibility.
You're saying that's one way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one
Yeah.
way that would make sense to you
Yeah.
to perceive it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about this? I could ask you a question, because obviously you, in the last 5 years or 6 years, or I don't know exactly how long, but approximately, you have done. I'm assuming this, but I'm not positive of this, but I'm just assuming this, that you've gone from living on a globe and not thinking anything of it to realizing what a huge lie, and an incorporated one at that,
Yeah.
widespread, that everyone
Yeah.
believed and is believing, and there are people like you and me and a lot of people in the chat here and a lot of people like Globebusters and all those guys. There's a group of people in the world right now that see something that the rest of the world does not seem to have the patience or whatever you want to call it to look at.
Yeah.
Do you think that does that seem to be a supernatural thing to you that's happened concerning this truth?
Well, again, I would have to jump to a leap, but what I can certainly see is that the power of that, as I always spoke about, as I've just mentioned again, if you can get people to start from a false foundation, then everything that they're telling themselves is a delusion. Every aspect of their
Yep.
life is delusional. And I've always been a person who's never been satisfied with any of the offerings. I've always asked the deeper fundamental questions, and I've always stuck to that. And for whatever reason, you could say that it's inherent within me, it's my path, my chosen path, whatever you want to interpret it as. I can only come from my perspective. So, of course, I can see that and I can relate to that. When we say the word supernatural, I've already spoke about this before. How do we define natural from supernatural? Because, what we call the natural world, for me, is a construct. So it's not natural. It's do you know what I mean? The natural true environment.
You're saying,
the prime mover is the natural state, is the natural world. So sorry, there you go.
If it's the way I'm saying, it's all supernatural, right?
Well,
I think I know what you're saying.
How do we decipher that? From our position and point of view, we're experiencing the world at this level. We call it nature, the blah blah. But when we analyse it from a bigger perspective, and if you and I agree, well, this is a construct, this is a creation, then just like if I erected a warehouse out there, we know it's a creation, we know it's a construct and a structure. You would never refer to that as natural. So how can we refer to this that we call the natural world when we know it's a creation? So therefore that denotes that it's non-natural. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, that's something that's come to my mind recently. Is okay. You have in the Bible, you have right in the beginning, you have the Word of God declaring these things for 6 days, and then all of a sudden everything exists. Okay, and if we go by that story, then science is never going to be able to describe the creation, would it?
No,
Because
absurd.
it's not only science would be the natural, like the study of the natural world, or material
Well,
and physical
well, how-
things
how-
might not include
Well, how I word that is
supernatural.
No, it's exactly what you're just saying. How I word it is look, we are the effects. We are the internal components of the effect. So we can never be out with the effects to know the
Yeah.
entirety. And science tries to go in these avenues of professing that it can tell us the story of the entirety of our being and
Yeah,
our existence, which is absurd. And this is why
14 billion years ago.
Aye, but
You
they
gotta
do,
be kidding me.
But they do it at both ends of the spectrum. They go to the micro and they go to the macro. You know, trying to get
Yeah.
to these points of being out with the creation or out with the experience or physical reality, and it's preposterous. And again, if we're part of something infinite and something eternal, then by right you can never ever get to a position of knowing the whole. Because if you and I can perceive the whole of our existence and the entirety of creation and existence, then it's something finite, which again
Yeah.
self-contradicts the whole notion of infinite and eternal.
Yep, I agree totally.
So so this is why I'm saying for me you can see a deliberateness in trying to push people into these never-ending rabbit holes of the micro and the macro, trying to create stories to encompass our existence, and that's where I see, it's probably deliberate, especially with mainstream science, pushing.
Yeah, the
these-
mainstream science is like they're at a disadvantage, and this is my opinion. They're at a disadvantage because they exclude the like spiritual world or the idea of God. Like that's one of the requirements of science is that God can't be the answer to any of it.
That's because.
And so I'm like,
That's because
go ahead.
that's because mathematics cannot define the infinite and the eternal. They'll talk about
exactly.
They talk about they use infinity in mathematics, but they can't do anything with it because if it's infinite, there is no beginning, there is no end. So this is why
Time. Yep.
This is why
Time
they
it.
opt for these finite storylines, because they're trying to create a structure of our being.
Yep. And then what I see in the Bible, this is one of the reasons why I see it to be true, is that it doesn't. I don't see in the Bible a place where it actually offers up all the information that I think if we knew everything about this world, then I don't think I just don't think that's
No.
a reality. You know what I mean? We
No.
aren't going to know everything about this. There's going to be question in everything
Why
that
would
we
you?
perceive.
As I say, only insecurity drives you to want that kind of certainty. I'm quite content to know that I'm part of an infinite progress of perpetual change and different experience, because that's the only way it would work. As I say,
Yeah.
I try and imagine you're sitting on the peak of eternity and the infinite and the eternal, and you know all and you know everything. I mean, what are you going to do with that?
It would ruin you. Of
course.
I thought about that one time. In the Bible, behold, he cometh with clouds. Jesus is going to return at some point, and it'd be some amazing thing. And in my mind, I just, if we already, I guess, if we knew everything, and if we had all this knowledge, then what would we
You'd
need?
be fucking
like,
bored. You would be bored to fucking tears, to the point of insanity.
Yeah, and I said if I knew what day that was, like if I knew beforehand the day that he was going to return, I don't think I'd be able to handle that.
No, and that's why my focus.
It would ruin a person.
Aye, and that's why my focus is here on this canvas, and it's like, well, we can create a better game here. We can create a better experience. If people put their minds to it and start to wake up and take responsibility. And for me, I think we could paint any canvas we want. Again, I'm saying that about the human aspect. As a whole, I still cannot get on board. I still think it's an abomination when we look at the process of what we call nature, survival of the fittest, things eating other things, and the horrors that go on here. For me, the whole creation thing, whatever this is an abomination. And I can never...
I think you're right in a way. I mean, there's so much evil or whatever. I don't know if that's the right word, evil, or there's so many bad things that happen here. It's almost, to me, it's almost like this physical and material world is somewhat of a curse in a way.
Yeah.
So I agree there.
It has to eat itself to perpetually keep it going to no end. And I always say that, people, well, what do you think the end result is then? There is no end result, it's just to perpetually keep it moving. And that's why we've just got this process of birth, death, one thing eating another thing, constantly refueling in order to keep it perpetually moving forward. There is no ultimate destination for it. But, you know, if we're to keep it going, then we could just steer it towards painting a different picture, having a different experience. And maybe, you know, I've spoken about this before, it's symbolic of what's happening right now. Maybe there's a fail-safe mechanism within this technology so that no idea or no ideology can ever establish itself as a permanent feature. So, you know, we may have a domination of a particular narrative, like how we live life right now, the structure of it, and that will only run its course for a certain amount of time before a natural mechanism kicks in that starts to dismantle it. And then from that, we will build a new, you know, era of living and possibility and thought and contemplation. And then maybe in 100, 200 years' time, whatever it may be, that will break down. And it's like a fail-safe mechanism that's incorporated into it. You know, and I
see what you're saying.
Yeah, and I can look at it from that kind of point of view of it being a technology and having these things in it, you know?
Well, and then time is another big part of the conversation. Time. You know, the God of the Bible, he's outside of time. So the things that, you know, that are happening today, he would have been able to tell you exactly the details about them way back however long ago. Yeah. But we're bound by this time. Our entire lives are bound by time. I can't even comprehend what it would mean to not be bound by time. I just can't grasp that myself.
I don't think we are bound by time either. We have this experience of finite, you know, birth and death, but I don't think we're ever involved. Time's not a thing. For me,
it's almost just like a course of reality that plays out. But again, so I think of God being outside of that, and it really makes me think of like, well, this world is something that is it's taking place or whatever with time. Yeah. And I see that's kind of the story in the Bible is the end of that time.
Yeah.
When the earth itself gets destroyed, and it's destroyed by the men that are there doing their sorceries and all the wicked that they do.
Yeah.
And I think that main wicked, when I'm talking about rockets and this technology to go up to the sky, that's exactly what it says in Isaiah. It says Lucifer says in his heart that he will ascend into heaven.
Yeah.
And so I just see all these NASA people and all these people that are inspired by going out to outer space. They're believing Lucifer instead of God. I mean, they're believing in his, like what he, in his lie, basically.
Yeah.
But the people, and I think the truth is being shown to us because of the time factor.
You incorporate all this. So if I can get to the root of it, you know, in your view, then what is your subjective view of the bigger picture? You know, why we're here, the purpose of it. You know, what it means for us in regards to transcendence, and we move on from here. I mean, do you have that kind of? That's what I'm always trying to grasp it with this kind of religious point of view. What's the be all and end all of this whole process then?
Well, I guess I'll do my best. In the Bible, the like, this is interesting stuff to me because it puts a timeline in the story for me. In Revelation, some of the things that are happening, there's a dragon that John sees flying up in the firmament. And I'm like looking at our world today. There's who's up in the firmament going to the space station? SpaceX Dragon. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of these things, one of the things that it says in Revelation 13, there was this beast that came up out of the earth, and then he made fire come back down from heaven and in the sight of men and deceived people by doing that miracle.
Yeah.
It was like a satanic miracle. And I'm thinking to myself, so what do you think, Del? What do you think of Elon Musk landing rockets? Is that truth or is that a big deception?
Well, you know my position.
You know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
so there is some sort of there's some interesting things to me that
Yeah.
that Elon Musk is making literal fire coming down from the sky when he's landing rocket boosters.
I mean, I get that, and you're still interpreting, sequence of events here within the experience. But what I'm asking for is, what's the be all and end all of this, position of this God, this creator, Satan, us within it? What's, what is the goal for us in this whole thing, and where do we
Well,
end up?
Satan will actually be destroyed, and anyone that follows him, they'll be thrown into basically a prison. What I consider space to be hell myself,
Right.
outer darkness. It's darkness, and so I think that darkness that we call space, it's going to be because of what they're doing with. We were talking about frequency with like the sound of these rockets.
See, when you say that, I get the image in my mind of, I don't know if you remember the Superman movie when the bad guys were in the fucking mirror floating about in space. I mean, that's
I do remember that.
But but again, it doesn't really make any sense to me. I don't know why, but I do know why, but I forget where I was going with that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. You were talking about we were talking
See,
about what's the end all be all of the.
Aye, so what I'm saying is that you're talking that in regards to like a physical place where people physically go, or is it just that they become subject to their own mind, that their own beliefs, that the things they buy into, is there going to become a point of separation where us that view differently, that are open, we go a different road, a different path? These people splinter off and perpetually live in lives of delusions and beliefs and whatever else, or are you meaning like they actually physically go to a prison?
Well, like that, not physically go there, but spiritually go there is what I would say. Just like when we die, we just go. When someone dies, when a relative or someone dies, we bury them in a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And we put a gravestone there, and we know that their body's there.
Yeah.
But as far as what I'm learned from the Bible and from those other books, the Apocrypha books, is that there's a place where your, I guess, spirit or whatever, your soul, the part that makes you Del, you know what I mean? That part goes and awaits. There's a day of judgment. And this judgment is, a lot of people I think look at this as like a different thing than I believe it really is. I believe that I don't necessarily think it's one day, but it's called like the day of the Lord, or Jesus said, I will raise you up on the last day. And you know how people talk about being saved?
Yeah.
Well, generally if someone's saved, they're saved from something bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So,
and the thing I see happening is that this destruction that's going to come, that at some point in time, it will physically destroy the earth, and it'll be fire that does it, and so everything, it'll be awful. But that's when the temple of God, or New Jerusalem, it's called in the Bible, comes down out of heaven from God.
Yeah.
And then people, the righteous people, or whatever, the people that, and it actually says the people that know the truth.
Yeah.
That they will live in that temple. So that's what I'm saying. What's the temple like? I mean, where am I going? And that's something that I don't understand. But because it does say in Daniel 12, it talks about people that bring other people to righteousness will shine like the brightness of the firmament, and the star, like the stars forever, or something like that. And it compares people with stars.
So I'm going to become a
star.
star.
I don't understand that.
That's what I'm saying. You know, my mind goes to comedy. You know, when I hear these things.
Yeah, I like you make me laugh. Make me laugh when you're talking about your grandma.
I'm going to turn like a light bulb and be fixed into the firmament forever and just fucking sit there bored with my nut.
But I think there's more. I think there's an aspect of that that realm, or whatever we want to call it, the heavenly realm, the spiritual realm. There's an aspect of that I don't think that we can comprehend while we're living in the earth, in these bodies.
I like the ideas and the notions of eternal bliss and enjoyment and enthrallment and thrill and happiness and joy. I mean, I like all that notion, you know. And if that's the case, then I welcome it with open arms, you know. But as I say, you know, it's because it's so difficult for us to talk about these things. That's why my mind goes comedy. You know, because
mine does too. Like I totally can relate to where you're coming from. I can. I mean, I'm just a person just like you.
Yeah.
And that's why when I come, you know, to your stream and I hear you saying the things you're saying, it really interests me, because in my mind, and this is just, you know, off the top of my head, in my mind, there's so many valid, I can't call them proofs, but there's so much valid information in the Bible that, to me, seems to be talking about the time we're living in right now.
Yeah.
That, I mean, there's just so much of it that I've come to understand it a certain way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I tell
but
you
like, by no means do I understand it all.
No, but I can relate.
I'm just learning, you know.
Well, I can relate, Joe, because coming from a religious point of view, as I've said before, the thing that gets me out in my bed in the morning is the hope that I'm going to see this place being torn to fucking shreds, and all the shit uncovered, and justice prevailing, and, you know,
all the lies being destroyed.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
And that, you know, and that's what's amazing to me is I know who put that in your heart.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus talked about it. He said he was going to send people into the world. He was going to show them the truth, and there'd be a lot of people in the world that would receive it.
Yeah.
And there'd be a lot of people that wouldn't.
Yeah.
And that was at the end. He called it the gospel of the kingdom of God. And I think it's because it's taught. I put my hope in that city, or whatever you want to call it, the temple of God. There's and I actually, a weird story. I had a dream where I actually went up to this mountain that was above the clouds. I drove up there in a station wagon in my dream, and when I got up there, I had a car full of people with me, and when I got up there, I was doing drywall, and a lot of the things that happened in that dream really gave me some insight about that place. And this might sound stupid, but I didn't think of it as a real place as far as.
So are you telling me God's?
I don't know how to explain it.
Are you telling me God's initiating fucking free labourers? Is that what you're saying? I've got to go and fucking hammer up some drywall for a lazy God.
Yeah, no, but what was interesting to me about that dream is that why was I doing drywall in the dream? And what's weird is that it made me think of what Jesus said. He said he's preparing a place for us, and there's many mansions in his Father's house. And so that temple isn't just a place where you just sit there and be a star or something. It's actually a real place, but not it's real that we understand right now.
Yeah.
But here's an when was raised from his disciples. They all saw him except for one of them. Thomas hadn't seen him yet. And the other disciples were telling Thomas that he's alive, and Thomas is like, "Nah, I don't even believe that. I'm gonna have to stick my fingers in his wounds, you know, to see that it's really him before I'll believe that." Yeah. And then one of the days Jesus was there and Thomas was there, and it blew his mind a little bit. But what interests me about that is that Jesus he could walk through a wall, but he had a body that they could touch. And he could eat food, but it was not the same at all kind of physical body like we experience in right now. It's a different, it's something we can't quite understand, I think.
And was Jesus still walking about with holes in his feet and his hands then? Is that, I mean, what the fuck's that about?
Yeah, that's my understanding. that's my understanding, is that certain aspects of our physical body end up being in that eternal body or whatever.
So what about what about my satanic tattoos and all that? Are they am I still gonna have them when I go to fucking heaven? Am I still gonna be running around?
I don't know. I have no idea, but it is like there's a lot of questions, definitely.
Of course.
But I guess what I look at that city in the sky, and if you look at what does NASA do, they do exactly what Lucifer does. Exactly. Their scope or their mission statement says exactly what Lucifer says in his heart. And I'm like, I never realized that before. To ascend into heaven, and then, they're not actually going up; they're going sideways.
Yeah.
When they try to go to space, they have to go sideways. They're not going up; they have to go sideways.
Do you think? I've always wondered and considered, the possibility that the thing they call the Great Rift. Do you think there was a time gone by where somebody managed to break it?
I don't know the story, but I've heard about it.
We call it the thing in the sky. They call it the Great Rift. It looks like a tear, almost.
Is it like in the Milky Way or something? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it looks to me as if it was broken at some point and been repaired.
Could be.
But,
and that's one of the weird things is that Satan in that book of Revelation, Satan and his angels, they are up in the stars. They're up in the firmament, and they're fighting with God's God's archangels or whatever.
Right.
And guess what it says it says that there's these John saw these 4 angels holding the 4 winds from hurting the earth. And when I read that, I'm like, so there's these 4 angels that stand on the 4 corners of the earth or something, and they hold the winds of the earth, which to me is what Enoch was talking about when he saw those men in the wagons riding on the winds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I think that those wagons like SpaceX Dragon or these rocket vehicles or whatever, they're actually fighting against the physical structure of this reality. I think.
Yeah.
And so I do think that we'll see in our lifetime. I think we're going to see destruction of the sky as we know it.
I hope so, mate. As I say, that's what I've felt in my life, and I hold out hope that that's exactly what I'm going to witness. And
there are things that I want to point out. There are things that you have. I don't know how to word it right. There's things that that you probably couldn't explain how you know them or why you know them, right?
Yeah.
Like you're saying about you can see this destruction or you could definitely see something like that happening. And I'm like, how does the person understand that?
Yeah.
Just in reality, and I think I honestly think that it comes from inspiration of the Spirit of God. I think He's showing you those things.
Mm-hmm. So then again,
and like I think the flat Earth too.
Well, that's the thing then, isn't it? You don't have to be a religious person if you're coming from that position. Then it wouldn't matter if I'm reading Bibles or if I'm going to church or practicing any of these kind of ritualistic
church
behaviors.
And all that.
I think
that whole religion stuff. Jesus hated religion.
Yeah, well,
he hates religion.
For me, if you're an honest person and you're asking the right questions and you constantly contemplate, then if truth is a path, then there only is one path, and you're going to end up at that path regardless of what walk of life you come from. If you're asking yourself the right questions. So. And
if you're open to learning what you're supposed to learn or whatever, because I can definitely, I got a lot of respect for you in that way where you say what you just say what you're thinking, but at the same time you're ready to have a chat with me and on some of these topics. And it, like you said, it's not easy to talk about these things.
No, and that's the thing. Having the ability to have a discussion without the need to shut each other down, because when we're talking about these things, they're subjective, and if you've got a particular preference or whatever influenced you or triggered the thoughts in you, then that's relative to you. And my walk's something totally different. I've came from a different background, different experiences, and as I say, if truth is one path, then you're going to end up on that path, and it doesn't matter where you came from to get there.
Yes, exactly. And I think that he seems, it's to me anyway, from my point of view, I see him doing these things to people, the people that would call themselves Christians, and they go to a church and, they got a pastor they love and whatever, all that whole stereotype of that going to church and all the religion stuff.
Yeah.
It seems to me that those people are the ones that are like strongly reject the truth.
Yeah.
But then there's people that would call themselves atheists or agnostic or whatever that receive the truth like nothing. They're like they consume it. They're like, oh, I want the truth.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like that to me is the inspiration of God. It's not going to a building and
No.
pretending you're holy every 7 days or whatever. It's
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that is just an excuse for people to shirk responsibility so that they can be apathetic and lazy and self-indulge.
And so they look good to everyone. They look good. Oh yeah, I go to church. I believe in God.
Yeah.
And I think that stereotype is unfortunately way wrong.
Yeah, of course, mate, of course. But well, listen, Joe, it's been a pleasure, mate. And
yeah, thanks.
You're welcome anytime. I mean, we could go on about this stuff forever and
yeah,
ever.
maybe we'll have another chat sometime.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, and I enjoy your point of view. So thank you.
No worries, mate. Anytime. Cheers for coming on, bud.
Have a good one.
You too, mate. Oh, I need to wait for the chat box, which I think it's trying to catch up, so it's going off really quick. And I'll see what people are saying. Right, that's that stop there. So, I'm glad you enjoyed that wee chat. As I say, I think the most important thing for me is that people realise that passing judgment and segregating yourself from other people based on, stereotypes. Obviously people see me skinhead, I've got apparent satanic tattoos and fucking whatever else. If you allow these things to affect you, then you're never going to have any breakthroughs, you're never going to reach out and communicate and build any bridge with people. And I'm always up for that. Any method of how to find a route that I can relate to people is always useful, because then when you can relate, you can have a discussion, you can comprehend each other, you get more clarity on other people's positions and why they come from where they come from. But again, for me, at the end up, it doesn't really matter, because the most important thing is for you to be true to yourself, to be intellectually honest with yourself at all times, and never delude yourself into thinking that you've accomplished it or you've reached the end of your destination, because it's never the case. You might feel confident today and assured about a certain aspect right now. In a week's time, 2 weeks' time, a year's time, you'll reflect and realise that you never had the full picture. So it's always an ongoing process, and that's why I don't like messiahs, I don't like dictators, people procrastinating, proselytising to me that they've got the answers and they know it all, and they offer me cryptic messages and trying to bamboozle people. Yeah, that's not conducive to any sort of progress in my book. We have to find a way to relate to each other. So again, just be shown. You don't need to keep reciting biblical phrases. If you can just have a discussion with somebody on a one-to-one level and find a way to relate what you're trying to communicate with each other, then you might have breakthroughs on it. And I certainly did. I mean, obviously now I've got a clearer picture of Joe and his position. He'll have a clearer picture of me and mine's, and anybody that was witnessing it will maybe have that as well, So, aye. Anyhow, let me clear the gin. I know pragmatic, but again, I could take that as you say, but I shouldn't be judged on that, especially when I know that tattoos coming from a point of view of ego, and I've expressed that at the time, trying to be windswept and interesting and project an air of mysterious depth and whatever. It's just all ego bollocks. So from this point of view now, you know, I'm at a different position. So I shouldn't be held to that because I've still got the tattoos, I'm mimicking gin or whatever the fuck it is. That was never my intention in the first place. My intention in the first place was probably just to get women or, you know, be more socially interesting, because that's what was influencing me back then. I was still subjugating myself to that type of thinking where I thought that was relevant and important. But no, I don't. No, I couldn't give a fuck. Anyhow, appreciate he's being here, people, and hopefully. No, Track Matty, I didn't mean you were judging me. I'm talking in general. You know, that people do judge and hold each other to previous. We're all out to evolve past our own being, you know, and we have to allow each other to do that. Again, I'm not talking to you directly, I'm just talking in general. Anyhow, much more could be said. So, I hope yous are well. I'm just waiting for a wee minute to see if there's anything that anybody wants to offer up. Am I going to the Kirk tomorrow then, Dale? No. The Kirk? WD-40. I've got loads of WD-40. I just can't be bothered. I'll fix everything else and deal with everything else, but when it comes to the chair and the door, I seem to just have an aversion. When it would just be simple, I could just go shh. In fact, you might have inspired me that when I press stop on this, I'm going to go and get a WD-40 and spray it. I'm trying in the process of getting another chair. I'm looking out for one. So I need to get some sort of throne looking chair. Take it easy, everybody. I'll see you very soon.